Hello, it's Concord Wind. I just got back from my family's house. My sister dropped me off. I went to the gym before going to my family's house, and we hung out and talked. And anyways, I wanted to show my grocery list. I know my handwriting is horrible, but and I also prepared a passage of God's words I want to read. I'm really tired. I had a double shot of coffee like just a couple minutes ago. Hopefully that kicks in soon. As a matter of fact, I think I might go have another one. 1 second. All right, I'm back. So the grocery list. Check this out. Trying to eat healthier, you know? Onions, whole onions. That's number one. Onions. I love to bake onions with the skin and everything on. Bake them, and then, the edible part, the meat of the onion just slides right out of the skin when it's baked for a while, A little salt, that's all you need. That's an ancient recipe, by the way, just baked onions with, it's like a recipe from the 1800s to just bake an onion and eat it with a little bit of salt. And I love that. It's so good. and what I like to do is take some salmon, like canned salmon, like a fillet of salmon, and with some of the baked onion with some salt and maybe some hot sauce. Eat it together. That's really good. Butter beans. I love butter beans. I'll get seasoned butter beans, Southern style seasoned butter beans. Love those. Some rolls. I had some rolls recently that made me really appreciate rolls because I was dipping the rolls in Sloppy Joe sauce, because some Sloppy Joe sauce and some dinner rolls were donated to me, and I was dipping the dinner rolls in the Sloppy Joe sauce, and I was like, wow, this is really good. Pickled artichokes. Love pickled artichokes, so good. Olives. I'm going to get green olives, pickled green olives. Those are so good. Pickles, love pickles. Yams, love yams. Coffee. Starting to sound like Donald Trump a little bit. I'm not trying to. Toilet paper. Paper towels, obvious necessities. Creamer for the coffee. Crackers. And Cheese Whiz. That was something that I saw at the grocery store recently, and I was like, man, I haven't had Cheese Whiz in years. I'm going to get some of that. Sweet jalapenos. Love sweet jalapenos pickled. Monk fruit to go with my lemon packets, my True lemon packets that I put in water, and I mix it with monk fruit to make a lemonade. SOS pads and Scrubbing Bubbles bleach to clean my shower, because I've tried to clean it and I can't clean it. It's just like, I don't know what to do about that. So I'm going to try the SOS pads. If that doesn't work, I'm going to try the Scrubbing Bubbles bleach. Cottage cheese. Love cottage cheese. So good. Milk. Probably oat milk is what I'm going to get. Dots honey mustard pretzels. Those are really good. Okra chips. I love okra chips. Banana chips. Love banana chips. Chili soup Zegrid, which is a proton pump inhibitor. It works really good. And instant mashed potatoes, which I had recently, and they were delicious. So I'm definitely wanting to get some of those for sure. And that's it. And salmon isn't on the list. Canned salmon isn't on the list, but that's something I'll most likely remember to get, And if I forget to get it at the store, it's cheaper on eBay anyways, and somebody delivers it in a grocery bag. They drive, I don't know where they are, but they drive. They don't even use like USPS or anything. They just show up and leave a grocery bag full of a 4-pack of canned salmon at my door. And somebody did the same thing with a Metamucil. Didn't use a delivery service, just delivered it themselves, and I thought that was pretty crazy. I saw them walking up to my apartment. I was outside smoking a cigarette and I saw them and was like, man, that's crazy. Anyways, yeah, it's been 5 minutes. So, let's go ahead and get into God's words. God says, I just spoke about the fourth indicator of how to judge whether or not a person has experienced growth in their life entry, which is the degree to which someone is able to submit to God and the people, events, and things they encounter. What determines the degree to which you are able to submit to God? If you are unable to comprehend or understand God's words, if you cannot at all grasp the things God says and requires, then can you submit to Him? No. This is far too difficult. So in the final analysis, what does someone need in order to achieve submission, to understand the truth? If a person understands the truth, is that not equivalent to understanding God's intentions? Yes. Only once they understand God's intentions can they gradually achieve submission to God and satisfaction of His intentions. It's very true. Understanding of God's words is what will enable you to be able to submit to God. For example, I had, a little bit of a trial today. I was, me and my sister, before she dropped me off here, she stopped by her boyfriend's house to pick up some stuff she left at his place. And I was sitting in the car and I connected my phone to her car's radio, because it's Bluetooth. And I was playing some of the songs I've made recently, listening to them, while I was waiting for her to come back out with her stuff, And I thought, I should ask Nick, which is my sister's boyfriend, I should ask him if he wants to hear one of my songs. And, I had time to think while I was sitting there waiting, because it took a while for her to come back out, It probably took like 10 minutes. So I was just sitting there, maybe like 8 minutes, I don't know. But I was just sitting there and I was like, you know what? I know that Nick is like heard about my beliefs through my sister and possibly through my parents. And, he doesn't, he's not a gospel target or anything. So, I thought, why? Because if I ask him, because me and Nick, we're not like super close. I mean, I like him and I think he likes me, but we're not like super close. And I think he's a good guy and everything, but I just feel like since we are more acquaintances than anything, if I were to ask him, and since he's dating my sister and he wants to be respectful of my sister's, family, and I'm her family, so if I asked him if he wanted to hear a song I made, he would just be like, oh yeah, even if he didn't want to hear it. And I just thought of God's words that's like, don't force people into the church. And no, I just was like, restrained. I was restrained and I held back and I just quietly disconnected my phone from the car radio when they were out there. And, I just thought this isn't an appropriate time. I don't think there will ever be an appropriate time, to be honest. I mean, I kind of think maybe I shouldn't even send songs to my mom. Like, I just get excited about the songs and want, I want to get feedback from the songs, but that's, that Maria is in my life and she loves my music. She loves it. She gives me feedback. I don't need to hear feedback from my mom, cause she probably doesn't want to hear it, and that's just, and I send the songs to my aunt and my cousins and like, and I've even sent them to my dad and sister, I mean, I need to stop. I need to rein it in, bring it in, dial it back because, I just have to obey God, and God tells us, and it just feels kind of forceful, because like they're family and they love me. So of course, if I send them a song that I made, they're going to listen to it. And And that just feels kind of forceful to send them a song and ask them to listen to it because they feel obligated to listen to it because I'm their family. And that just doesn't seem right. And that was something I learned today. That's an experience I had. So, yeah, helped me achieve submission to God by having an understanding of God's words and seeing where the principle applies, because at first I wanted to share my music with Nick, and I didn't know Heaven was there, which is his daughter. But, which I don't think that's an appropriate name. But I don't think he named her, but I don't think that's an appropriate name for a person, Heaven. That I don't think that's appropriate. But I would never tell him that because, but, anyways, yeah. I guess that's it. Yeah, I'm really tired. Although the caffeine has kicked in, but I feel like a tired energy kind of feeling like, and I knew I could get away with drinking caffeine this late because right now it's like, what is it? It's like 9:00, and I knew I could get away with drinking caffeine this late because I've had nights where I've slept for like 6 hours, got up early, had my caffeine, 2 hours later fell asleep, took a nap with the caffeine in my system. So I know that I'll still be able to go to sleep tonight because I went to the gym, got up, kind of early, went to bed pretty late. I didn't get up super early. I got up pretty close to afternoon, but I went to bed really late. And, I just know that the amount of sleep I had, because I could have slept more when I got up this morning. I could have went back to sleep and I didn't. So the fact that I didn't take a nap today, didn't go back to sleep this morning when I woke up, went to the gym, and I've been around my family, which I love my family, but, that's emotionally draining, makes me tired. And I feel like, well, I'm not going to say that. Anyways, it's whatever. I enjoy being around my family, to a degree, but it's just hard sometimes, like knowing that they don't believe, like, in Almighty God, and that's tough, that's tough. Because I know, I pray for them because I know they'll never accept Almighty God. They think that one day I'll awaken and return to the Bible, which that's not going to happen. But, they have hope for me, but I don't have hope for them. I don't think they'll ever accept Almighty God. Because, the opportunity to accept Almighty God is very rare and very few people do it. Many are called, few are chosen. There's over 1 billion Christians on this planet. That's not few. So Christians are not the chosen people. The chosen people are those who believe in Almighty God. Because the people who believe in Almighty God really are few. That really is a few number. And of course, if that was the only, explanation that I gave for why people who believe in Almighty God are the chosen, that wouldn't be enough because there's other groups that believe, in God in different ways that are few in number, like Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons, stuff like that. So, but what makes the Church of Almighty God special, what makes my ministry special, is that we experience change, and that's the difference. And that's how it's the work of God, is when you're able to experience change, when you're able to experience life with on the foundation that the Creator holds sovereignty over everything and every arrangement is for our benefit and every arrangement is by the hand of God. When you experience life with that foundation, you're able to learn so much. And the only way you can have that foundation is if you're convinced God truly holds sovereignty over everything and that everything is arranged by God. And the only way you can be convinced is through Almighty God's words. That's what I found, That's what I found. Obviously Peter was convinced without the need of Almighty God's words. Job was convinced without the need of Almighty God's words. But those are historical figures. And there were exceptions. But in the modern age, and the age of today, corruption is a lot more sneaky. It's a lot more sneaky. People aren't out like killing each other. But, people are abiding by the law and expressing corruption at the same time, And the corruption is even justified by human ethics, human morality, and like having multiple partners that sometimes, in a lot of circles of society, don't, especially for a man, people think a man can have multiple partners, and, that's like something to be praised, and that's disgusting. And I know that's an extreme example, but, little things like lying in an interview, lying in a job interview, that's corruption. Lying to your landlord, that's corruption. It's deception. And when you're able to change from that nature, well, the only way you can do that is through Almighty God's words in this day and age. Peter didn't need Almighty God's words because, Peter had better humanity than what people are possessed of in today's age. People in today's age, their humanity is so diluted by the world, with the, progression of technology. I think, technology has made corruption more available to people, so people are more quickly, more easily corrupted at a younger age, and experiencing various kinds of corruption that perhaps, before internet, I think, people were not corrupted in every manner of way. I think people might experience one aspect of corruption, maybe at like 13, and then that corruption grows by the time they're 20. And then at 25, maybe they adopt a new element of corruption from a philosophy they heard from a coworker or a neighbor. And, and the corruption spread a lot slower, and it was a lot more, specific and targeted. And now it's very broad, and it targets everybody now, through the internet, and it's every kind of corruption. And there's people who still have humanity that reject certain elements of corruption, And I don't even think people with humanity are necessarily in the minority. I think it shifts. I think sometimes people with good humanity are in the minority, and sometimes they're in the majority. I mean, when we look at the popular vote, it shifts. Like, for the presidential elections, like the popular vote shifts. And, one side is obviously morally inferior. One side is more degenerate than the other side. And if I say specifically that, this video won't get anywhere, but, but I mean, if you're a Christian, you pretty much know what I'm talking about. I don't have to spell it out for you guys. I mean, one side obviously is pushing for like mutilation of children and stuff. I mean, obviously you know what I'm talking about, right? And just me saying that probably is going to cause this video to not be seen by anybody. I don't know. But anyways, I think humanity, good humanity is fluctuates, and I think corruption fluctuates, but I think corruption is probably in the world the dominant, element. And everybody's corrupt, but when I say corruption, I mean like severe corruption, like inhuman corruption. Like I think non-humans dominate the world, which I'm a non-human myself, but I've been saved. So I mean, there's hope for everybody. I didn't have conscience, which proves I'm a non-human. I didn't have reason, which proves I'm a non-human. I have schizophrenia, which proves I'm a non-human. But I've been saved. So that's the power of Almighty God's words. If you accept the truth and practice the truth, if you're convinced by the truth and live by the truth, you absolutely will be saved, no matter your origins. It doesn't matter if you're a demon, a non-human, if you're reincarnated from an animal, if you're a Buddhist or a Catholic. It doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't matter where you came from, how you grew up, what kind of person you are, what your humanity is like. You can have bad humanity, but if you can accept the truth, and if you can be convinced of the truth, if you can understand the truth and practice it, then, I mean, you can be saved for sure. I have faith in that. I have faith. So anyways, this video's gone on for way too long. So thanks so much for watching. God bless and goodbye.